Hey guys, welcome back. Tisha here, back for another Big Love Season 1 review. I am feeling defeated because I purposely woke up early this morning so I could get a lot of recording done without a whole bunch of commotion because it is currently Saturday when I'm recording this. You're going to see this on Wednesday. And I failed. I failed horribly. I failed miserably. Because I recorded what was 43 minutes of good TV, I think. I don't know. It was a decent review. And I go later on to upload it and it won't upload. Because Tisha, the genius that I am, recorded the video in slow motion. So something that was only supposed to be 43 minutes turned into 6 hours. And I tried my hardest to convert it, to condense it, which I did, but YouTube isn't recognizing it. And y'all know I'm not tech savvy. And if it doesn't want to upload it, doesn't want to upload it. Son did something, he got it to begin to upload, but at the end, it failed. Then I tried to record it again, y'all, and 20 minutes in, guess what I forgot to do? I forgot to clear off that whole thing. So I ran out of memory. You can't make this up. So here I am recording again. If it doesn't work this time, I'm quitting for the day. I am quitting. But go ahead, do me a favor and hit the like button as we jump into this here review. Here's what I gotta say. I found myself noticing that we have two ladies who I do not feel the same way about. We got Nikki, who I can't stand, and Lois, who's my girl. And they're both technically in the same position because they are both the second wife. Now, with that being said, Lois, of course, has put in more years, but I kept on thinking about Nikki as Lois was saying certain things, even though I don't care for Nikki. So we begin the episode with Nikki and Bill, and they are engaging in a much needed or much required baby making session because Nikki needs to get that baby, right? Supposedly. We'll get into it. So they're having sex and she's telling him, I want to have your baby. Give me a boy. Give me a boy. Give me a boy, Bill. Come on, give me a boy, Bill. As he's climaxing. Now, I don't understand why it has to be a boy. Given that she already has two, why does she need another one? Is it because boys are valued? Is it because there's more favor there? Like, what's the significance of a boy? She tells him, think of some boy names. I'm thinking about naming him this name that would have got joked at school. And I'm thinking about naming him Bill. And he's like, we could go with Bill, but I'll come up with the list and we'll talk about it. So as he's putting back on his clothes, Marge busts up in the room because Bill's apparently not supposed to be there. We later on realize he's not supposed to be there because we hear Nikki thank him as he's about to go for coming by, making it sound rather transactional to me, but you know, to each his own. So she's there because her garbage disposal has stopped working yet again. Now, she wants Nikki to look at it, not Bill, because he's not supposed to be there, Nikki. Interesting that out of all the people, you choose her, which goes to show different wives are utilized for different things, as well as Bill doesn't do nothing. Because Bill hears this, and rather than saying, I'll look at it when I come back from home, I'll look at it before I leave, he says, have Ben look at it. What does Bill do? What does he do? So we later see Ben helping with the garbage disposal, and he can't fix it either. Their interaction, Ben and Marge, continues to be inappropriate to me. There's a lot of hitting and stuff back and forth that you would see with little kids that like each other. And there's twinges there where I feel like Ben likes her. But we'll get into that. So, before Bill leaves, he's kissing Marge outside of Nikki's door, and Nikki doesn't seem bothered by it. She just like rolls her eyes and lays back down. No biggie. On to my girl Lois. My girl is back. So she's in the car, and she's applying her lipstick. she walks out, she grabs her plate of what we learn later is cornbread, and she walks in the hall. And as she walks in the hall, all eyes are on her. I'm like, okay, Lois, get him, girl. Walk through the hall, girl. Do your thing. But I realize that everybody is avoiding her. No one is saying hi. No one is saying, how are you doing? How are you feeling? Nothing. They're just watching her as she walks in. So we see what she's walking towards, and it is Frank, her husband, who is surrounded by not one, not two, but 3 wives. We find out that one of the sister wives have passed, so she's there to pay her respects. Frank looks at her, sees the cornbread, and says, is that savory, sweet, or is it poisoned? The wife on the right, I think her name is Netta, she laughs. And I wanted to know what was funny about that statement and why, out of all of the women, do you keep on feeling like it's her? I'm thinking Lois is there to pay her respects, but Lois is there to talk business. So she basically acts like, says, could y'all go away so I could talk to him? She doesn't say it like that, but she says, Frank, I need to talk to you. And, the one that has now deemed herself at his right side says, we're sister wives. There's no secrets with us. And she says, I need to talk to him. So he kind of signals them to go away to make him a plate. Find out Lois really isn't there to pay her respects. Lois is there to claim her throne. She's there to claim her rightful position as the head wife, as the legal wife. Frank laughs at her saying it. Apparently, we find out that for years, Frank has been telling Lois that when Roberta, who is his first wife, passes, that Lois will become the first wife. That he will legally marry her. So Lois is there to get what she's due. And she's like, it's my time. You told me you were going to do this, so let's do it. And of course, like most of the polygamous men that we've read about, Frank flips the script and he goes back on his word and he refuses to do so. Takes it a step further by saying, even if you hold a gun to my head, I wouldn't marry you. It's so insulting, and it makes me wonder what she did to have him treat her like this, because it seems very much so like the other 3 wives are connected, like they move together, like their beliefs are the same. Even the way that they dress is different than the way she dresses. She very much so is an outlier. And they're listening to the conversation, and you could tell they don't want her to be labeled as the first wife. On to Bill. Bill is trying to figure out a way to take down Roman. We see him as he looks at the paperwork that he got about Roman, and he calls Roman and he says, I want to work out an agreement with you. Like, we need to come to an arrangement. Since he'll be attending Roberta's funeral, he's going to be out there. So he tells him, okay, we can meet. As Bill is about to leave, he sees Ben. He says, Ben, I'm going to be gone. Even though I said I wasn't going, I need y'all to, do what you're supposed to do. And you, as the man, I need you to look out for the family while I'm gone. Ben is eager. He's ready to do it. Next, we see Barbara. Or Barb. Is her name Barbara? I can't remember. Anyways, Barb is doing her part. Barb comes in there as Nikki's making the bed, as one of the boys is peeing, and she's asking Nikki about her cycle, because Barb is trying to track her ovulation to make sure that they schedule the rotation around when she's ovulating, because Nikki wants to have a baby. And Barb wants it to be done as soon as possible, because Barb isn't trying to have Nikki use that as an excuse, basically, to get pregnant. They're both onto each other. So Barb's like, I just want to know so I can plan the family calendar around it. Nikki did this to be slick. And it comes out later on based on her actions. We'll get to it, that she did it to become slick. So Nikki's like, I thought that we would just keep it the way that it was, Barb, that I would get, him on my regular nights and any other night that I need him. So I could get him on additional nights as well. So you thought by saying you want to bring another soul into the world, that meant that you would get more time to work on bringing that soul into the world. Whereas Barb is like, nah, you're not about to sit here and use that as an excuse when I know that there's only a couple nights out of a month that you could get pregnant. As they're making the bed, the subject then turns to the allegations that Nikki made about about Bill pursuing a fourth. So she's like, I was wrong. He's not pursuing a fourth. I just got my signals crossed. Nikki has this way of letting Barb know that she's onto her without coming out and saying that she's onto her. Because Barb is like, well, I knew that there wasn't a fourth. Of course you knew, Barb, because you were the lady that was sleeping with him. And, I never, had a second thought about it. And she's like, well, how did you come to the conclusion that, there wasn't a fourth? And she was like, because, I thought it was some things because, he was, coming home at a different time and he was sneaking off and he was doing things. But, that's not the case. She never asked her what really was the case, because does Barb really want to know that Nikki knows what she has going on? Probably not, but they're on to each other. So we later see Nikki. After this whole conversation about the fourth, after the whole conversation about how she wants to have Bill whenever she wants to have Bill so that she can work on these babies, we see Nikki doing what Nikki is doing best, which is being conniving. Nikki has been lying. Because this woman who just announced to the entire family that she wants to conceive, that she wants to bring another soul in, is now sitting there with a container in her hand full of birth control pills, and she takes the birth control pill and puts it back in the drawer. Are they even allowed to take birth control? And why are we taking birth control pills when we were just saying that we're trying to get pregnant? So it goes to show you, Nikki don't want to be pregnant. Nikki is playing a game. Now, why she's playing a game, to me, is to get to Barb, because she knows that if she says, I want to have a baby, Bill's going to do everything in his power to make sure that she gets that baby. So back at the compound, Bill arrives at the compound and his first stop is at his mom's. But of course, he's being followed in these oversized monster trucks by Roman's goons, because they got to intimidate him. They got to follow him, because who knows what he's going to do if he's allowed to roam the compound by himself. It's annoying to me. I don't like bullies. I don't like stuff like that. I don't like people who take advantage of other people. And that's what a lot of what happens here. I can't even think of my next word. That's what happens a lot here. There we go. So Bill, seeing that he's getting followed, turns around and he's like, is it all right if I just, see my mom? Is it all right if I go over there into that residence right here, the one that you're standing here behind me, blocking me if I want to pull out of? Is it okay if I go there? And he walks in, and she, who hangs up on him, who calls him a traitor and all those other things, is surprisingly happy to see him. So he brings her a small TV, lets her know that, he wanted to bring this to her. She can use it at the house and she can use it at the store. So she's like, that's so sweet of you. Thank you. But you came all this way just to bring me a TV? And he's like, no, I'm also here for, Roberta's funeral. She did a lot, Ma. You said you told us to love her. And she looks like she's bothered by it, but then she's like, oh, Roberta, how she just, was the perfect wife, and how she allowed Frank to walk all over her to the point where if she needed him to, she would lay down and he could wipe his feet on her, just basically saying she was a pushover. Lois then brings up how, in her mind, Frank has shamed her yet again, because he made certain promises to her and now he's reneging on them. She says that she wanted to make Frank make her the legal wife. She wanted to make Bill and Joey and the sister, I think her name Maggie, legitimate. She wanted protection. She then drops a ball that I don't even think I was thinking about, which goes back to a lot of what we see now in Sister Wives. And she says, as the second wife, as the wife that is not legal, she owns nothing. She doesn't own the house, and she doesn't own the gas station which she works at. It's all owned by the priesthood council. So not even her husband, who she's married to, is on that by himself. Now, whether he's a part of the priesthood council ownership part, I don't know. We know he's on the council, but that doesn't mean he owns it. As she's saying this, I said, okay, these people are forever trapped because of how Roman has done things. And he's done it intentionally, where even if they were to leave, they would only have what's literally on their backs because they have no ownership. They're trapped forever, which is how he likes it. So Lois says, my father, well, she says your grandfather, which was her father, was the true prophet, and he would have never allowed it to be this way. Basically saying he was fair and he was a good man, and he wasn't like what Roman is. And she says, because the way things are now, none of us are doing good with the exception of you. And he's only doing good because he left. And I said, this has got to be harder for her. First of all, you're in a situation where you're working and you're just giving all your money to this man. But not only are you working and you're giving all your money to this man, but you're giving your money to a person who took over what your father had, tricked him, and is now ruling over it. I think he unalived him too. I'm not sure. Let me know down below. But he stole everything from your family. We then see Bill head to the UEB headquarters to talk to Roman. His first wife says he's not seeing anybody today. He's booked, right? But Bill tells her, we've already talked and we're supposed to meet. She slams the window, go ask whatever, comes back and says, all right, 10 a.m. you can see him. Back at the house, Barb is telling Don's wife, Peg, all about her affair with her husband, saying how we've been enjoying ourselves. We're going from motel to motel, and we've just been sneaking around, and it's such a rush. Now she is excited. She's thinking, yes, it's first wife to first wife talking, and here we go. We can have this conversation, and she's going to be like, ooh, you've been doing what? But that is not what happens. Peg isn't into it. She thinks that it's dangerous when it comes down to it, and that Barb's feelings can end up being hurt. She reminds her, Barb, he's not going to leave his wives, which makes me wonder what type of conversations that her and Peg had that she would say that of all things. Does it mean that at times Barb has come to you saying that she wants to leave or she wants him to be done? I wonder. So we see Marge, who has, I think her name is Pam, coming over once again to visit her with bags in hand, and Ben sees it. I do not understand why Marge isn't listening, but then again, after she kind of explains things to Ben, I get it. So Marge is watching the show with the neighbor. As the neighbor, Pam, and her are watching the show, and Marge is eating popcorn and she's having what seems to be a good time, Pam starts to question her and wants to know about the neighbor, Nikki, because she'll wave at Nikki and Nikki doesn't wave back. And she talks about the way Nikki dresses. And then she brings up the fact that, Nikki doesn't, she seems standoffish. And she doesn't reveal anything about it. But the fact that she's asking you so much about that neighbor goes back to, you have to be careful what you say. Maybe one of your friends needs to be outside of the neighborhood. As she leaves, the moment that she's back in her house, Ben goes over to the house to confront her. He talks to her like he's chastising her. They're yelling back and forth, and they're fussing with each other. And she ends up cursing, and she uses one of her F-bombs. And she's like, oh, please don't tell your father. Please don't tell your father that I used that word. And he's like, I'm not going to tell. Why would you think that I would tell? Because she's like, you're coming over here yelling at me. I mean, is this an older brother younger sister relationship? Is this I'm crushing on you relationship? Like, what is going on with the dynamic between these two people? Because I don't get it, but they're very much so peers, if you ask me. She then starts crying a little bit, and she spews out all the things that she's feeling, saying how she's depressed and she's lonely and she's not able to socialize, because if she socializes, that it will create suspicion and have the neighbors wondering and all those things. And she's like, how do you do it? And he's like, you have to find things to do outside of the house. Maybe you can find friends elsewhere. Other words, not in the neighborhood. So she cries in his arms a little bit. They hug, and there's a moment there where he looks like he feels something. I don't know what it is. You all tell me what you're gathering from it. Like, maybe I'm looking too much into it. So back to the brothers. The brothers are hanging together with their dad as we hear Frank talk about Lois and how she shot up his truck and how she probably poisoned him. She shot up all 4 tires of his truck. Let me be clear. Frank says he still feels like she poisoned him. He got the idea from Bill. He even goes as far as he's talking about the boy's mom to tell the boys that he will never allow that woman to have contentment. You're having this conversation with her sons. These are her sons, and you're talking about their mom with their sons. This is something that these dodos seem to just do, and they're not intelligent. Like, the boys spent majority of their time with their mom. Do you not think that they want to cover their mom and protect their mom and make sure that their mother is good? Because unlike you, they established a relationship and a good rapport with their mom. So he goes from talking mess about the mom to now talking mess about the sons. And he's joking Bill about how Bill used to come up and stutter and stutter and stutter. And he's making Joey get irritated with the things that he's saying about Bill, because obviously this was something that Bill struggled with. And he's like, it was because of Rhonda that you stopped stuttering, you stopped talking like that. He's like, but look at how stuff has turned out now. Your mom was walking around telling everybody that I was beneath her, that she married beneath her. And now, look at me now. I'm on the priesthood while your mother's a train wreck. He's gloating about the state of Lois's life, not taking into consideration that you're talking about your wife. He's talking like a man that does not care about what is going on with his wife when he should. I said, okay, he obviously doesn't love her, and I wonder if he likes her. So the father and sons head to the Savers Club. I don't know what kind of place it is. I guess it would be called Walmart Meets the Funeral Home. And I'm saying that because we see caskets in it. So he goes from talking and mess about Frank to now talking about Joey and how Joey is walking really slow. And he's probably walking real slow right now because he's in a fog. I said a fog. So was Joey a substance abuse user? Did Joey have a long-term concussion? Like, where's this fog statement coming from? He says to Bill does to Joey, I don't see how you could take him. And he's like, I just try to avoid him. So we know now that neither one of his kids can stand him. I want to know how Joey went from being a professional football player for the Dallas Cowboys to being at this compound where he seems like he's not that happy. So they're there, as I said, at the Savers Club to buy a casket. They go into the back section where the caskets are laid out. And Frank and Bill are looking at some of the nicer caskets, the wooden ones with the gold trim and things like that. And he walks over to Frank does to the cheapest looking of all of them that doesn't even look like it's made out of wood. It looks like it's made out of some type of plexiglass or something with fabric over it. It's very much so a rectangle with a lid, and it's $279. Bill and Joey are looking at it like, no, not that. And Frank's like, no. She was a simple woman. She wouldn't want to have anything more. And he walks off and says, get the card from the guy, get the payment from the guy with the card. So you mean to tell me that you aren't even paying for your wife's funeral. This isn't his mom, number one. Number two, you're a beloved member of the council. Why isn't the council helping you with this? Or why isn't Roman down there paying for it himself, since all of y'all give all your money to them anyway? End of that. We see Bill at some point at the house. He's hearing Joey and his wife talking to one another and making out, and he decides to call his wife and have phone sex. No surprise, it's Marge. Next morning, we see Bill go to see Roman. Roman is showing off his wife's skills because Rhonda is giving out different, poems and their doctrine and whatever else. And she's reciting and reciting and reciting. And he has her turning to Bill. And Bill's not interested in this. Bill wants to get to why he came there in the first place, which was for a meeting. But Roman doesn't want to talk business. He's trying to act like he doesn't want to talk business because of the funeral. Bill isn't having it. Bill's like, I didn't come here for that. I got a proposal. Let's talk about it. So he ushers his wife out. And Roman says, I got a cash, settlement offer for you for $50,000. And then he's like, how's your real estate stuff going? And Roman's like, that doesn't have anything to do with this conversation. And Bill, I think, kind of shocks him a little bit because Bill makes him aware that he's aware of a lawsuit that's going on. Roman is sitting there trying to act like even though he's a prophet, he doesn't know certain things, and he definitely doesn't know about this lawsuit. And Bill's like, okay, well, if you don't know about the lawsuit, then you might want to go ahead and talk to Albie, because right now it's in a small private, lawsuit. It's in a small county, San Pete County, and it's, quiet and it's contained, and a lot of people don't know about it. But the Attorney General's office has spoken with me. And they told me that they would just love, to use whatever information I have to, have another broader investigation. He says, we can have subpoenas, and then there's lawyers and investigators and auditors just waiting for my call. He's threatening him. He says, I can have this information. And he tosses the folder on the desk that shows that they're investigating him. And Roman is like, you can't be serious. You're blackmailing me? I said, oh, Roman don't like this. Bill says, I paid off the loan that you originally gave me. I gave you that and more than what was due. He tired of paying you, Roman. So he's basically saying, like, if you keep on doing this, if you keep on harassing me and doing the stuff you're doing and trying to get this money off of me, then I'm going to help the people with their investigation. So Roman is looking at him like, I've listened to you. Now you need to go. Bill stands up and smiles and reminds him that it's a good offer. And he needs to make sure that, he gives Albie a message for him, which is that he better not ever come back to his house or his businesses again. Sounds great, but Bill, you don't sound that believable to me. And I already know Roman's going to do something crazy to get you back for doing this. It's not over. So they leave. It's time for the funeral, and Lois shows up with her boys and her son as Frank stands there in the middle of the doorway, continuing to taunt all of them, including Joey, with football references. I really feel like all Frank did was torture them growing up, because it very much so seems like Lois was not a favored wife. And you know how these men treat kids and wives that they don't care about. So Lois doesn't want to sit with the family because no one wants her. I felt bad that was her stance on it. I like Lois, and I wonder what Lois has been through. I'm eager to hear more about her story. So the funeral starts, and good old Frank stands up there, and he says, and I shall call you wife through the veil. And he pulls down the veil. In the celestial kingdom, by the name only known to me, and I'll pull you through to be reunited with me for all eternity, which means the only way that this woman is going to be called up to the kingdom is if this man calls her. This man who may not even like her has a say-so once again on whether or not she can make it into the kingdom, which goes to show you that these women who have been lied to, who have been told that their entrance into the kingdom is based upon their husbands. This is why. It's because of stuff like this. So a woman can spend all this time with a man and she may not even be called up. What are they there for? What are they there for? I really want to know. It's crazy. He's then standing up there sticking it to Lois. And I say sticking it to Lois because to me, the whole thing was about Lois, because he's talking about how loyal, she was and how faithful she was and what a wonderful wife Roberta was. She was just a great first wife and a great sister wife. And she'll be smiling down when Nita takes her place as first wife. And I said, no, he didn't. No, he didn't. The entire speech was a dig to Lois. Everything that he said was aimed at hurting Lois, because he was even looking in her direction as he was saying it. There was a lot of joy in him rubbing in her face that she would not be the first wife. It's like, Lois, as bad as you want this, it's not going to be you. Instead, it's going to be her. He even calls her up to his side as Lois is visibly shaking and she starts crying because she's hurrying up and trying to wipe off her face. And I want to know if you all think it's anger, hurt, or a combination of both. Because I personally think that it's a combination of both. He's walking down the aisle with his first wife. I don't even think he even needed to do all that, but that's what he does. And Frank stands up and grabs him by the arm because he's upset. And he tells his dad, I need to talk to you. And this just turns into another situation where it further shows the corruption between these men and this religion, and how there's often a bidding thing going on here. There's often an exchange. There's often a situation where women are treated like livestock or something at an auction, because he, in essence, ends up negotiating with his father. Frank tells him he wants $15,000, and with the $15,000, he'll stop humiliating Bill's mom and he'll make her the first wife. They go back and forth about it. At 1 minute, Bill's at 3. The next minute, Frank's at 10. They decide upon 5. But it has to be 5,000 with new shingles for his roof because he has a leak, and tar. And if he does that, then there's a deal. So Bill's like, yeah, we got a deal, but you got to show me your marriage certificate first. Just like that. The dynamics of this family is so twisted. The dynamics of the community is so twisted because Bill did the same exact thing that was probably done to Nikki in regards to his mother, where he's bribing his dad, in this case, to legally marry his mother. And I think Bill was bribed to marry Nikki. See where I'm going here? As he's about to enter back in, Roman tells him some things in his prophetic terminology and talk that he likes to do, where he's speaking like he has a revelation. And he basically lets him know that he'll answer his proposal soon. On to Nikki. Nikki is looking at the garbage disposal and she can't fix it. So Nikki takes it upon herself, despite being told that she does not want a plumber there, because he probably doesn't want to spend the money for a plumber. Despite being told that, Nikki takes it upon herself to go and buy a garbage disposal at the Home Plus store. So she does this, grabs the thing, goes to the register and says, I got a family discount. And she gives Barb's name. The cashier doesn't want to give her the discount because she isn't Barb and she doesn't have the card. She's looking and she gives her a credit card and she's like, no, I don't want to do this. She's like, just call Dawn. She's like, no, but I can't do this. Long story short, she ends up doing it. They go back and forth about it. She swipes the card and it declines. Because as we all know, Nikki has racked up a lot of credit card charges and she hasn't been paying anything. So the cashier, need a manager to lane 5, need a manager to lane 5, need a manager to... Nikki's like, no. Why do you have to do that? Don't do that. She's like, because I was instructed to hold the card and I need a manager. So cashier is not giving Nikki back her credit card. And Wendy, who is not a manager, sees this whole situation. And because Wendy is nosy, Wendy inserts herself. Now everybody knows Wendy is already on the lookout for things because she ran into Don and his other wives. And now she knows Don is a polygamist. And now here Nikki is. And Nikki is telling Wendy her situation. So she's like, I need to talk to Don or Peg. And Wendy's like, they're not here. And you can't use Barb's Hendricks discount because you're not Barb Hendrickson. Like, you can't do it. And she's like, well, I need to talk to Barb. She's like, come with me. We'll work something out. So that something out is she calls Barb. Wendy calls Barb down. Barb shows up and acts like nothing's wrong, hands the discount card to the person, and is like, I should have just gave her the card. And Wendy talks and says, first she said she was your sister, then she said she was your cousin, then she said she was your neighbor, then she said she was your friend. She's saying a whole bunch of things. Her story keeps changing, and Mr. Hendrickson is very strict about how we use these cards, and we can't just give these cards to just anybody, because then we could have somebody trying to get 25% off. Anybody could come in here and just say, oh, your name, and then just get it. And we can't have that. And it's just a bunch of unnecessary attention. So they purchase the thing. They walk outside and Nikki's car has been towed because Nikki was parked in a 15-minute parking spot. And she was in there longer than 15 minutes. So she's riding with Barb. They make a stop at the place to get milkshakes and some fries. Nikki snaps on the cashier about her asking if she wanted ketchup. Like, some people don't eat ketchup with fries, but Nikki feels like everybody does. And Nikki in line starts to lose her marbles. I feel like Nikki was in the wrong here, even though Nikki made some points. I feel like Nikki was in the wrong here. Barb is like, why didn't you just ask me? And she's throwing a tantrum and she's kicking the glove compartment. And she says she doesn't want to have to ask permission for everything. I understand that. But the bigger issue here is, if he didn't want a plumber to come, why would you think he would want you to spend that money? Number one. Number two, the way that you all have arrange the financing, it seems like Barb does have too much control. But I understand it because look at how Nikki spends money. So they drink their milkshakes, and the subject of, Barb's like, why are you so upset? What's really going on comes up, and they talk about it, and she's like, why did you, feel the need to bring up the schedule? What's wrong with us keeping up the schedule? I'm trying to have a baby here. No, you are not. You're taking birth control. You're not trying to have a baby. She claims that she's doing this because she wants the family to be together and she doesn't feel like Barb wants it. And she wants to be the public wife and it's not fair and she wants to be in control. And Barb is like, look, I'm sorry. I'm sorry that I'm the first wife. I'm sorry that I didn't die, which makes Nikki feel away. And for 0.5 seconds, Nikki had me feeling like, oh, she cares about Barb. I don't know how much she does, because Nikki feels like she's unappreciated, because while Barb was going through her cancer, Nikki was the one who was taking care of her. Nikki was the one who was watching her as she slept, and she was praying for her. And she's like, how could you forget that? And Barb says, I'll never forget what you did for me. Here's the thing. Is Nikki admirable for doing that? Yes. But don't use that as a way to always have a one-up on me, number one. And did you do it because you legitimately cared about me, or did you do it because you wanted it in? I'm just saying. So she's like, I'll never forget what you did for me. And I do want you to have a baby. And then Nikki lies again and says, I wanted to have a girl for you. But we know she didn't want to have a girl because she was hollering about a boy, or she was just saying whatever she could say to get, him to feel like this is what they're really working on. And just like that, I was pissed off again. So on the way home, Bill gets a call from Lois. Lois, who is so spunky, is so excited because she's going to get to marry Frank legally. He's like, are you happy about it? She's like, I got a natural cheerful countenance. And I just wanted to let you know. I said naturally cheerful. No, but you could tell she was really, really excited. And I wonder what level of relief that left for her. Like, is there some type of ownership or something that we don't know about? Is there a policy? Is there what? So she says, it's not going to change a whole bunch because we're not going to be living together, but he won't be around much longer. And Bill's like, what do you mean he won't be around much longer? She's like, because he's getting older. She keeps saying things that would make Bill feel like she's doing stuff to him. They get off the phone. Bill arrives home. All the wives and the kids are greeting him, and Ben looks sad. We see him later ask his dad if he wants him to live the principle. And Bill says, the principle isn't for everyone. Some people are called to it, some people aren't. But if you're asking if I feel like you're capable, then my answer is yes, I feel like you're capable, but it's not for everybody. Bill says, but Ben, you have a big heart, and we'll just keep an eye out for it and see what happens. And that is all. Y'all let me know what you thought of this episode. What do you think about the whole situation with Nikki and Barb? What is going on? Because I'm not liking certain aspects. I can understand how, as a second wife, you have no rights. Neither does the third, the fourth, or the fifth. I feel like when you're getting into this situation, whether we agree with it or not, that everybody should be protected. And I could see how people like, Mary and Janelle and Christine don't have some of the things that they're owed because that legal wife has full ownership. But you guys, let me know what you think down below. Hopefully this will load. Until next time.